we're ready to dive into the Bitcoin inheritance topic. So if you want to listen to that, yeah, it's a new rabbit hole, or new. It's not a new, but it's pretty interesting rabbit hole that we are going to try to, like tiptoes into that topic, because we could be talking days about it, but I will try to open up that topic for you. First question, have anybody was thinking about inheritance, in your age? Yes, no, a little, yeah, okay. Receiving, yeah. All right, so what we're gonna do, I gotta like I said, we cannot really dwell into the topic so much because that every rabbit hole opens another rabbit hole and then we can get stuck. But I will try to just describe what you might be thinking about and at least the basic navigation in the topic. What we are going to try to go through is how to solve it. We got a certain framework what you can try to apply. I will try to give you 3 examples of different use cases based on age and what you're doing. We'll look into a little bit into the technical profiles, legal framework, which makes sense in certain cases, and action that you might want to take. So, first thing is that inheritance globally will give you real plan B. Because if you don't have it planned, at least in your circle, yeah, you're done. Because nobody knows anything. So it's good to open that topic. Second thing is that your self-custody is probably better than to rely on a third party, because you probably remember FTX, Celsius, Mt. Gox, and others. And yeah, that was kind of fuck up. So I wouldn't rely on exchanges. If there's third party in inheritance, we will talk about it, but definitely it's not an exchange. Why to think about it? Because it's some legacy. And you should plan it ahead because you don't know if you're going to wake up in the morning tomorrow. And that's the question that you should be at least prepared internally. What action's going to happen after you're not here? And last part is that if you do nothing, then probably Bitcoin is going to be lost. Thank you, because we appreciate that, the others. But in a better case, it's going to go through the standard legal regime by civil law, by inheritance law, and you cannot influence it. So that's also not ideal in many cases. So we got some framework you can work on, because that gives you basic map what to do. So it's called P.L.A.N, P-L-A-N. P is protection of your keys. So, like I said, it's not a great idea to have your Bitcoin on the exchange because you cannot control what is going to end up happening. So real self-custody, even though with those fuck-ups that happened lately, in a Bitcoin world with a self-custody, it's not meaning anything that self-custody would be a bad way to do it. I think it's still the best way to do it. You just need to organize it properly. So self-custody your keys and have a structure in the self-custody is the way to do it. Legal part is that you got a couple of options. First thing is that you don't want to do any kind of your will, which is okay, but in that case, you should have at least some instructions for your heirs. So it can go off the books, but they need to know that there's something. If they don't know, there's nothing. So legally, it's not bad to have a will. Sometimes it can be registered, sometimes it can be hidden. You can limit some heirs in the will, depending on the jurisdiction. Legally, you can theoretically create a protection vehicle if it makes sense, and you should review it regularly. A sounds means announcement. So you should announce your family, your parents, maybe your kids, depending on the age, like there's something. Even there is no will, they should be informed that there's something. So we don't want to say details, how much and where, but there's something. And there will be later on some kind of treasure hunt, right? So that they are not surprised. And to N, it means some notes. And this is exactly, you inform them that there's something, and in those notes, you want to create at least some information, documentation, what's going to end up happening. So there might be a cypherpunk way that nobody knows anything except your family, or there can be notes like, hey, here's the will. That will is registered with these lawyers. They got it stored, it's officially signed, or there is a separate vehicle that is protecting all those assets. So those notes, the documentation is really important. So every single step of that is totally crucial. If you miss one, so there will be like misalignment. So you have to think about it. And right now, I will dive into like the 3 different age categories. And probably we cannot do one-on-one session, right? So I don't know your life status. I don't know what you're dealing with. Inheritance is really unique. But we can do at least like 3 groups that you might fit into one. It depends on the age. It depends on the model of the family. If you're single or married, having a family, kids, no kids. What is your lifestyle? If you're living more in one place, or you're more nomadic across the globe, or you're living in one place, but you got also like multi-jurisdictional planning, which adds complexity. And what is your financial situation? Because you can have a mortgage or not, or you can have everything with KYC or everything with non-KYC. It differs a lot. So the first group, these are the youngsters, 20 to 30 years old, normally no children, probably no wife, just living maybe with a partner. You travel a lot, you're competitive, you know how it works, computers, like tech information is kind of okay. You think you are going to live forever. So 20 to 30 is kind of difficult because generally speaking, a lot of people don't know about your Bitcoin. Not even a family, not even your parents, nobody knows anything. So if something's happening, this is a little bit problem. Second problem is that there's a zero planning because you say, I'm going to do it tomorrow or in a month or in a year or in 10 years because I'm young. Third problem is that oftentimes the backup is kind of sloppy. I'm not saying it everyone, but sometimes it sounds a little bit sloppy. I'm going to solve it. Or a lot of people are trusting third parties. This is a big limit. And fourth part is that your partner you're living with, they are not time wedded. So there's no time test. It's too soon to introduce something about Bitcoin to the partner because you are not going to know if you're going to live together another 20 years or you are going to break up in a year. So that's why this is another limit. So what to do with that? So in that age group, I think just review your self-custody. Nothing complicated, nothing really too big, because that adds complexity. In that age, it's totally fine if you're going to be fine with self-custody. You're going to know where's your seed and where is your passphrase to the wallet, but nothing more. That's it. That's fine. From the legal perspective, that's a big question. Maybe basic will is enough, or it might be even enough to just say to your parents, like, look, here's some Bitcoin, and if something's happening, you can find it in the safe. My document that it's in the tamper evidence envelope, and yeah, you're gonna find it, okay? From the notification, like I said, partners, siblings, hey, don't do anything, but something exists, and leave it, keep it simple. Because like, if you're starting to create complicated solutions, it might be maybe not worth it, because like the 20 to 30, you think like you're gonna live another 30 years, 40 years, so Don't overcomplicate it, especially if you are in the beginning of the route in Bitcoin. The second group is like between 30 to 50. It's big majority, I would say. Definition of the group. A lot of people are having minor children, are married, or with a long-time partner. There is some regular income, probably like diversifying assets, investing into Bitcoin. There is a systematic kind of like, okay, let me buy a little because I can afford it. And the whole life is about like, okay, I need to maintain family. I need to protect my family. So what are the risks here? Your spouse normally knows about Bitcoin, but a lot of them are ignoring, like, oh, yeah, fine, no, yeah, whatever. So that might be a limit because, yeah, I heard about that, but I don't know anything about it. Second limit is children are normally too young. So if your children are like below 10, it's too soon to explain the technicality. So it's not going to work yet. There is one person normally in that family who controls everything, which is again the limit, because if something happens to you, yeah, you need to have a really good documentation. And generally speaking, there is a lot of pressure, a lot of stuff are happening. You're dealing with other things, maybe mortgage, maybe living in another country, relocation. You are trying to make everything happen, so that pressure is like constant. So for that family, there might be a pretty good idea what to do with that, and it's to like divide the stack, because probably it's going to be bigger than when you are 20 years old. And when you are in this group, saying like, okay, so I got one wallet that is maybe Lightning for spending here and buying a beer and buying a wine, and that's it. Then I got a second wallet that is cold storage, but let's say regular spending. I mean, you put something apart and you say, look, we need to buy, I don't know, another vehicle. Okay, so you can spend from that wallet. So, okay, let me take another 30, 50 grand and let's buy a vehicle for a family because we need it. But you can access it. You got a single maybe seed with a passphrase. You got it like on your hardware wallet. You can use it when you need it. And then there is another layer, and it's called deep freeze. And it is kind of the setup where you set up the wallet, but you delete the wallet. So there is no physical wallet where you can access it. You just have a seed phrases, you got a passphrases, and you store and you diversify them. But you cannot just take the device and immediately make a transaction. So you cannot access it. You can't even make it happen. If somebody's going to be telling you, hey, you have to send me something, it's not possible because you physically don't have access to that stack. What you can do is that you can take XPub from that wallet, you can load it, and you can see that, for example, generate a new addresses, UTXO address, and you send there, but you cannot spend it. To spend it, you would need to recover your seed phrase, you would need to put a passphrase, and to load it in the wallet. So you can basically touch it. And it's a pretty good idea, even like intentions to, let me spend it. No, it's not possible because you would need to find your seed phrases. And the third group is like 50 over. And in that situation, let's describe it a little bit. Probably married, might be divorced, might be with a new partner, probably adult children. You already have some assets that might be substantial in that age, and you might end up having no mortgage. So kind of good. What is a risk is that in that age there is a higher probability that something might happen to you. So over here, having no estate planning, it's not a good idea. You should have clear idea what's gonna happen when you're not here. I know nobody wants to think about it, nobody wants to talk about it, but it's kind of uncomfortable truth to that you should have it already planned. What you can do is that depending on the amount, how you feel comfortable, you might use kind of like a multishare, so differentiate your seed phrases, maybe geolocate them in different countries, or if you are not technically really smart and you're not grasping the idea, there are also kind of like solutions like Casa or Anchorwatch that they are helping you with holding some portion of keys. So they can't fully control it, but they have, for example, one of the keys. And if you want to do full self-custody with Multisig, you can use Liana wallet or you can use Nunchuk. So there are other options for also like technically capable individuals. And from the legal perspective, there definitely should be will, or in some cases, if it makes sense also when you've got another assets like stocks, bonds, maybe a lot of real estate, then you are throwing in a Bitcoin and so on, you might have a private foundation that can protect those assets and they are not like on a physical person. But it's a really niche idea, but it exists. So, let me rephrase it. Are you interested in a technicality of like how seed phrases work and the differences between like single seed and multisig and Shamir, or should we skip it?
Go for it.
Yeah? All right. So, I'm not saying this is like the law, but these are like the approaches you can take. So first approach is that you can have a single seed. Like, do you know what is seed phrase for your wallet? Cool or? Yeah, okay. Like somewhere in the middle. So seed phrase is a private key to get to your Bitcoins. And to remember it easily, you got from the wallet, you got 12, sometimes 20, sometimes 24 words. And those words are really important to take care of them, bury them somewhere, literally, and not telling anyone. Because this is what anybody, if they get that seed phrase, they can get to your Bitcoins. The first kind of like a beginner option is that you get a one seed phrase. And the good thing is, it's simple. The bad thing is, it's simple. Because that simplicity creates single point of failure. So anyone who gets those 12 or 24 words can get to your Bitcoin. So you cannot diversify it. So it's one place where it's going to be maybe at your home, maybe you put it in your chalet somewhere, but it's just one seed phrase. What you should do is, in that case, you should have it in a like metal backup. So not using a paper because there are people that they are throwing away papers and they will never find it. So that's metal backup is kind of cool, and definitely in that option, it's good to introduce a passphrase on top of that seed phrase. So you got a seed phrase, and passphrase creates like another layer of protection. It's like another sentence or word that goes on top, and who doesn't know it, they cannot access it. So this is kind of like not a bad idea if you're feeling that like comfortable, like if you're feeling like, look, if I don't want to lose it, but if I lose it, I can live with that. Or if somebody steals that, I can somehow live with that. Great is it's kind of simple. But more and more assets, or let's say money or Bitcoins you're gonna have, so I don't think it's a good idea. And then it's much, I would say, ideal situation is that Multishare or Shamir backup. And the difference is that over here, you're going to introduce multiple shares. So you can select if you want a 3, you want a 5, 7, 9, 11. Depends how many locations you have in your life that they feel safe. So in that case, let's say we got a 3 out of 5. It's really a popular option. So you got 5 shares, and to get to your Bitcoin, you need 3 shares from those 5, whatever. So you don't have to rely on all 5, you need 3 out of 5. So if you lose 1 share, nothing happens. If you lose 2 shares, still nothing happens because you still got those 3, and those 3 are the limit. The good thing is, why it is so great, you can distribute those seed phrases. So it doesn't mean that everything stays in your home, but you put one share at home, another share somewhere else, and I will get to that, how to do that. It's a resilient solution, and you don't have to rely on us, hey, if somebody's going to rob our house, yeah, it's bad, but nothing's happening. If our house is going to burn down, it's bad, but still, yeah, whatever that share, I got other shares that I can put together. And the advanced solution might be that multisig I mentioned previously, and there you need to be technically really good and knowing what you're doing, because the complexity grows with multisig in terms of that every Bitcoin you want to send, you need to sign it with multiple devices. So you want to send Bitcoin, you sign it with one device, then you need to connect the second device to sign it, maybe even third device to sign it. It's called partially signed Bitcoin transaction when you propagate it. And you need multiple devices to sign the transaction. And if there is not signature from all of those devices you selected, it's not going to go through. The bad part is it's more complicated on how to back up those seed phrases, because you also need, it's called descriptors. So from each wallet you need a descriptor that you need to store together with a seed phrase. And if you don't do it, then you cannot restore your multisig later on. So if that sounds kind of complicated, that is complicated even more. And you always have to feel comfortable that you are under the control, you know what you're doing. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's not a good approach, because if I ask you in a year, do you still know how to work with whatever setup it is? You should tell me, yeah, no problem. And if you're not sure how that works, then it's a problem, because you always need to know what is the step-by-step approach to be able to get your Bitcoins. Otherwise, what is the difference between being hacked or being robbed or forgetting how you did that, because the result, the end game is the same. So overcomplicating solution is also not an option. You have to feel always comfortable with it. And I said here that those 5 secrets you can somehow put into different geolocations. And this is it. I want to give you an example that it's possible. So if you got multiple secrets, so you can select that, let's say you live in Paraguay. So you leave one share in Paraguay, okay? Another share you can put, for example, into safety box in the bank, right? Another share you can, I don't know, you're from Europe. So you probably might have a family in Europe or some siblings in Europe or someone in Europe. So you can put another share to your country, home country, where you're coming from. Or if you're from Paraguay and some of your family members live in Europe, you can do the same. Or you can open a bank account in Switzerland. And you open a safety deposit box in Switzerland and you put one share there. And you got another one, you got a good Bitcoin friend that you know each other for 10, 15 years. So you say, look, here's the one share, can you keep it for me? That's it. And none of those got any idea who has the rest. So my Bitcoiner friend, he doesn't know who got the rest of other seeds. He even doesn't know how many seeds there are in place. There might be 5, there might be 3, there might be 9. He doesn't know. Because that portion you or your friend or your mother or your brother got, they got 20 words. And they don't know how many shares of those 20 words exist. So there is no single point of failure, even with the bank account or bank safety deposit box, where you can store one share. You got a rigged banker who's going to open your safety box. Okay, fine. And what's going to happen? Nothing. Because they got a one share and they in total need 3. So nothing's really happening. So it cannot be compromised, the whole setup. And on top of it, you can put that passphrase I was telling you about. And that passphrase, it's pretty good to have it in your memory, but not only, and plus have it somewhere, maybe your physical hideout, or have it in your end-to-end encrypted password manager, or just use a cryptometer and then upload it somewhere. but it's not together with those other secrets because it sits on top of it. So you can distribute it really nicely, geolocation, and it's not relying on one home or one country or one entity. And it sounds like overkill, but if you're feeling that you got a lot of Bitcoins, it might be the right solution. And okay, so what are the golden rules? You want to select who's going to receive that share. So you selecting the distribution. So no single location is making you fragile. Nothing's happening. Nobody knows anything about the others. You got some sort of geopolitical resilience in that case, because even if one country goes bad and you cannot get back, nothing's happening because you are distributed geolocation. Compartmentalization, nobody knows anything. Friend doesn't know about your aunt, or they don't know about your brother. And passphrase is totally separated. That sits on top, and obviously that secret needs to be communicated in those notes or documentation later on, where to seek for it if you pass away. And in the beginning, I mentioned that there are like two approaches that you can go with, like help of the third party, or you can go cypherpunk way. Cypherpunk way is you design everything and nobody knows nothing. I'll tell you why it's good, and then I'll tell you why it's bad. So the good thing is that you are 100% in control of everything. You own the Shamir, you distributed that, you know where it is. You write your treasure map. So for your kids, for your wife, you write, hey, you know what? Do you remember we've met there under that tree in that country, seek for something. You don't have to tell in those notes seed phrase. You don't want to put it there. But you can do like guide them where they can find enough those phrases to restore the access to the wallet. The good thing is no third parties know it. You got a perfect privacy and sovereignty. There's no state, no attorney, nobody knows anything. Bad thing is that it requires super discipline, and it requires that your heirs know what to do. If there's like kind of like a misalignment between your knowledge and your heirs' knowledge, it's probably not a good idea, because they are not gonna do the treasure hunt, or they are gonna just do it in a bad way. And this is really good if you want to stay off radar and you have non-KYC Bitcoin. So no KYC, yeah, it's a perfect solution because it stays that way. So even your heirs are going to get no KYC Bitcoin. It's not going to go through the standard inheritance process because it's not existing. Okay, so that's the one way. Why to do it with a third party? Third party means that you got a lawyer in place. So you do probably will. You register that will with your attorney. They probably register it within their network. And when you pass away, all the attorneys who are going to be responsible for the inheritance process are going to be notified that there was a will. And that will is going to state probably that there was some Bitcoin. Okay? The good thing is that you don't have to deal with kind of like relying on your family that they know technicalities, because they will be described like also the routes to get everything. They will do all the legal processing. The bad thing is that it might also create some disputes. The question is if that like a legal route is going to solve like the inheritance. Because if you are in a, that depends really if you've got a really good relations in the family or not, and you have to take this in account. And state and other third parties going to know about that your heirs are having Bitcoin. So you are not off radar. You are in the spotlight. So that is the limit, and you have to count with that. There are probably in many countries good tax implications, like in those good terms that many direct inheritance heirs are paying 0% tax in some jurisdictions. That also depends where the inheritance process takes place. But you need to know that the whole process and the paperwork with that inheritance process is going to be visible, and you're going to probably be presenting it to the banks to, like close the bank account of the person or just to transfer it, and all in that whole paperwork will be also something about Bitcoin. So that is the limit. So what you should do, and I must reiterate especially the questions you have to answer to yourself. So first thing is that, does the will resolve disputes between heirs? So if you are in a bad kind of relations in the family, does the will that is officially registered help the kind of like a tension in the family? Yes, no. If the treasure map is a better option than treasure map than the official will, and you keep it off the radar, yes, no. Does a third party help to complicate family conflicts? They are maybe some heirs that they are by law mandatory heirs. Does it help? Not. Maybe when you introduce Bitcoin into that equation, it might even make it worse. So this is something to think about. What are the specificity of your jurisdiction? It's important because some jurisdictions make zero inheritance tax, some not. They don't have it, so that depends. Are heirs capable of understanding the cypherpunk route? If not, it's not good to keep it like under the radar, because they will probably shoot themselves in the foot. And always consult with a local attorney in your home country or in the country where you live in, actually. So what would be the process? What is the standard inheritance route? Because based on that, you can decide what route to take. So advantages to go with a third party. You simplify the process, you make it simple, otherwise the complex treasure map hunt is getting simpler. You get everything officially, so even Bitcoin that was non-KYC becoming KYC, but it's officially received through the inheritance process, so now it's everything totally fine and clean. You can have some tax benefits. Lawyer can help in that kind of like a messy situation. So these are the benefits. The disadvantages are especially that everybody knows about it. You are not off the radar. If you were private before, now you are not private. There might be frictions because there will be some maybe heirs you don't want to have as a heirs, and you depend on the quality of a third party, of the lawyer. So I mentioned in the beginning we are almost done. It's not a rabbit hole. I don't want to dig down into that in deep. But if you're feeling that your life, for example, there are a lot of assets, not just Bitcoin, but you got stocks, like I mentioned, you got a lot of real estates. Maybe you got that KYC Bitcoin. You can create a private foundation. It's like an entity, and you can separate all assets from you. And if you do it, so then the standard inheritance process is gonna go with nothing because you don't own anything. Everything owns the foundation. And when you do that, so the benefit of it is that foundation keeps going. Foundation is not dissolving with your death. So it keeps going and doing what it should do to protect and plan who's receiving what. The benefit here, theoretically, is that you don't have to respect a local jurisdictional laws of inheritance. Because like my kids needs to receive X and my wife needs to receive Y. And so you got a certain structures in a standard inheritance process. But with that, you as a physical person had nothing. So here you plan up front who's receiving and benefiting from your Bitcoin. You can say, I'm gonna give it to the charity, and it's gonna get a charity everything, and nobody can do anything with that. Or you can say, you are gonna just have an allowance a month in that value. and it's going to keep going. So it's totally apart from you, because it is the entity that lives for itself. So it's making sense from a certain amount of money, and obviously it adds complexity of legal things to set it up correctly. And I would say for a lot of Bitcoiners, it's not the best idea, but it might be an idea if it's you feeling like, hey, it's heavy lifting for me and I got a lot on my shoulders, and there are a lot of assets in the family, so that might be kind of option. In terms of Bitcoin, I don't think it's a good strategy if you have a non-KYC Bitcoin, because you would KYC it. So if it's totally everything like under the radar, so it's not a way. But for KYC Bitcoin you bought on the exchanges and you put your ID cards everywhere, it might make sense. So the last thing is identify what is your weak point. Think about it. What are the hairs if Bitcoin is KYC or non-KYC? Design ideal scenario. Are you starting with single sig? Maybe in a young age, it might be good, get comfortable with it. When you get comfortable with the technology, swap into Shamir or maybe Multisig. Okay, so you should think about when to introduce will, because that is always better than having no will. And execute those for P.L.A.N, plan. So protect your keys, think about legal implications, do announcement to your family members, and have notes ready, some documents. And the last part is that you want to look into that strategy that you set up every 3 years. That is the minimum. Maybe you do it even every 2 years. But reevaluate if everything still is good, you're in a good kind of like relations with those, they should be your heirs. If not, rewrite will. If not, redistribute those seed phrases, change the structure. So look into it. Like we say normally, you should be sure and do once a year that you know where are your seed phrases, that you can have access to your Bitcoin. You should do it yearly. This is a little bit more complex. If you're a fan of it, you can do it yearly too. But I think like every 3 years is kind of like a sweet spot. And running that route every 3 years, is it still the same? Yeah, fine. Or do I change my mind? I want to adjust it? Fine, do it. Don't leave it like unattended, because later on, like I said, you don't know if you're waking up in the morning. Yeah, so we're done. If you want to look into what I'm doing, so you can check on projects I'm working on. And if there are any questions, that's the right time right now to ask. Thank you for listening. We can have a talk about it if you want to. Happy to share with you what I know, and yeah, have a good evening.